Hello, Aries. Welcome to your Siren Song reading. If this is your first Siren Song, let me just explain briefly. So I have laid out here the first verse, the inspiration and story for the first verse of what you're currently resonating. The chorus, the second verse and its clarifiers. So they have clarifiers for the first verse, chorus, second verse, clarifiers. And then, of course, the chorus will move over here after the second verse. And then there's a bridge as well. By the time we get to, through the first verse, through the chorus, through the second verse, you'll have a pretty clear idea regarding whether or not this is the song that is currently your resonant vibration. If you do feel that it is your song, we're going to resolve the song in the third verse over on Vimeo, sometimes a fourth verse as well. All the decks I'm using are in the description box, and we're going to start looking at your song, Aries. So the first line of your song is the Ace of Swords. So your song begins in a state of great clarity. I don't know if you can see that. It's a magnifying glass with a butterfly underneath it. Interestingly enough, I actually have a very similar magnifying glass, and one of your decks that I've used here had the butterfly at the bottom of the deck. So that seems like a significant way to begin. So you're starting with great clarity and examining something. You're examining something carefully here, Aries, at the beginning of your song. And then the second line of your song. Oh, I love this. This is the Ten of Cups. And I absolutely love this image. So beautiful. Three very happy friends staring at the sea. Kind of beautiful. So clarity, examination, and looking at the sea. So it's almost like examining a butterfly is examining, like, obviously some kind of transition, right? We always think of the butterfly as emerging after a transition. But then what you're looking out upon with a group of people is like some solid friend group or community of some kind, something like that, in a happy state. So for the third line of the first verse of your song, we have the Ace of Cups. It's beautiful. I love this. So kind of mermaid sitting in the center of what I always think of as the wreath of the world. It's kind of like enclosed in that, her cup is totally full. She's smelling a rose. Yep, she's smelling a rose. You see that? Okay, the fourth line of the first verse of your song is the Seven of Wands. Seven of Wands. She looks like she's explaining something. She has a great command over her own world. So like halos, always indicate connection to the divine, In this case, it almost looks like, kind of like the back of her head is sort of pierced through to the divine realms. So first verse begins in clarity, examining like what you've become as a result of transition, a sense of like happiness and being supported, looking out to the, while you're examining, it's almost like you're looking through this glass and seeing your own transition, but in so doing, seeing the vastness of the ocean. That's pretty cool, while feeling supported. And the idea being that you maybe are the central figure From there, a sense of your own cup being completely full, you being like sort of, you know, smelling a rose in the center of your world. It's very beautiful. And then the Seven of Wands, which is typically holding your ground, but you are like divinely protected, guided, inspired, and explaining something. And we move on to your chorus. So the chorus is the fault line. The fault line. The fault line. This card, it reminds me, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Togo. It's like an amazing movie. But it's up in Alaska, and Willem Dafoe is like got his dogs, and they're sledding across a sound up in Alaska at like the end of winter, and all the ice is breaking as they travel. It's really beautiful. So this is about like something is beginning to come apart, and you know it. You know it. You know what this is that's beginning to come apart. We're going to clarify everything. So, all right. So, moving on to the second verse. This is the first line of the second verse. Is inspired by the Hanged Man. It's called the Hanged One in this deck. It's interesting to me with the fault line. I actually consider this card, the Hanged One, to be you imagining what will happen, Aries, if you don't address the cracking ice. It's like you're getting enough of a warning regarding this matter. And it looks like you have a great deal to protect. Because if you look at, again, that first verse, that opening verse of your current song, your resonance currently, the energy that you're currently vibrating, as described in song, we have you examining your transition, finding something beautiful, but also something very vast and open, and being supported, feeling like your cup is full, and here you're explaining something. So maybe this is you like speaking your truth, holding your ground, and as a result of it, you know that it's inevitable that something is going to crack open. And at the beginning of the second verse of the song, this is you kind of, you know, playing out that tape. Like, what if I allow it to crack open without preparing? For example, what if I do nothing about it? What if I do nothing about it? In the second line of the second verse, you have the Page of Swords. Beautiful Page of Swords. Looks like a very undersea kind of energy. I can see a sort of halo around it, even though it seems like it's touring beneath the sea. You know, encountering all this gorgeous kind of like coral and sea life and that kind of thing. So sort of like in this sort of imaginary deep dive where you've allowed the fault line to crack without addressing it. That's maybe like your inner child sort of, oh, wow, there's a lot of beauty to see here, like what was behind what you were examining while you were the Ace of Swords energy at the beginning of the song, like looking out. See, you can even see like the horizon line there. So this is, for example, almost that middle figure with a magnifying glass, right? And what those colors were like what your inner child has to discover once you allow, and I'm not saying allow it without preparing, because you may need to prepare, but once this fault line goes and you are you fall through the ice on the sound, because I'm sure that reference didn't come up by accident. If you haven't seen that movie, I highly recommend it. Best movie. You're in this like beautiful, like very exalted state. I mean, I don't know if you can see this. So in this deck, there are references to popular figures throughout. I'm going to leave it up to you for you to associate. I mean, some of them are very obvious. Anyway, let's go to the third line of the second verse. We have here the official transformation. This is the Death card of Scorpio, of course. So beautiful. Look at that. You can almost kind of like, I don't know, smell it. It's very visceral, you know? I mean, the fruits are open. They're cracked open, right? So it's actually sliced open. There's a larva there. There's a worm inside the fruit. But it's interesting that the fruit is hanging on the vine, already cracked open, sliced, actually officially cut in half, so that you see the flat surface and then you see inside the fruit. I can't help but think about like the lines down the center of the fruit as being similar to these fault lines. Like once exposed, right, the insects don't even have to do any work to access those juices. Insects and other animals, potentially other, I kind of hate to use the word predators, but that's what's coming to mind. All right, so then of course, there's the first verse, which we have described. You're witnessing your own transition, you're supported, and it's very expanded. You feel your cup is very full, and you're, taking time to smell the roses. And yet you've got to stand your ground. You have something to explain. You have this beautiful halo around you. And this same halo is going to show up in the second verse. So, and then the chorus is about the fault line, so like something's about to break open would be like a chorus in a song, something similar like that. And then we have just gone through most of the second verse, hanged man, thinking about it, what happens if I take that dive, if I allow this to crack, if I fall through that ice. And this is what you imagine you'll discover, which is, as I understand it, this. The beautiful colors that you see through the looking glass in the Ace of Swords at the beginning of the song. And then the official transformation, which frankly has already been alluded to because the butterfly was at the bottom of the deck of the animal spirit guides that I use to express the bridge, even though it's not the official bridge card, sorry. Fourth line of the second verse, we have the Three of Cups. Look at the little turtles, which is so interesting to me because I remember when I first got this deck, I assumed, that has to be the Three of Cups, but that's not. That's the Ten of Cups. This is the Three of Cups, these undersea turtles. So then, of course, the way that songs work, your chorus would then move over here, whatever we've written to explain the fault line. An example, as I said, would be something's about to break, something's about to give way. That moves over and gets repeated. And then the bridge, which is usually purely musical, is going to have an essence, right? The essence of the bridge here will be the mouse spirit. Now that's really interesting to me for a number of reasons. One of them is because my companion here in the reading is Ganesh. And Ganesh rides a mouse. rides a mouse, and that has a lot of reasons for that in like the stories and that kind of thing. Everything from sort of conquering fear, moving slowly, having to be very clever because Ganesh moves so slowly. Here, the mouse spirit is explained as tending to small things. The mouse, I don't know if you can see, the mouse is adorned with jewels and on a bed of flowers. So the mouse is in fact exalted in this reading. As the essence, as the bridge of the song, I would say that there would be a very broken chords, very intricate instrumentation. Let's begin to clarify. So clarifying the first line of the first verse, which was, as you recall, this beautiful Ace of Swords looking through the magnifying glass at the results of your own transition, we have the Eight of Wands. So if you can imagine that sort of burst of energy as sort of coming through, see the light that's inside the magnifying glass? It's kind of like coming right through that light, right? Your vision is focused, is pointed through this small thing, but then when you look through it, the whole world expands. You recognize not only that you're supported, but that you're looking out upon a very vast future, life. Clarifying that, we have the King of Pentacles. So interesting, because I did make the Togo reference earlier, and the Togo movie is actually, it's about like Sepala Siberian Huskies. So, and I don't necessarily, I don't know if that's a husky. Could be a German Shepherd. But the King of Pentacles, as we know, is a very stable energy, fixed earth, so officially Taurus. There's a little bit of a glare on these cards, so let me show it to you. Very peaceful. I love him. He's got books all around him. He's wearing like boat sneakers, very relaxed. Looks very healthy. Guess, that might be the energy that you're experiencing while feeling supported and feeling like the world is, your oyster, basically. Clarifying the Ace of Cups. Third line of the first verse of your song, we have the Page of Cups. The Page of Cups is sort of like, I don't like the glare. It's a floating energy. See? It's like the floating energy coming from the heart. You see it? Floating out of the body. So this is clarifying this. Again, we have ocean. Floating out of the body to sit up in that central. It's a sense of being elevated. Clarifying the fourth line of the first verse, which was Seven of Wands, we have the Ten of Pentacles. What I most love about the Light Seekers Tarot is the sacred geometry that's there. So you have a lot to protect. It's kind of like the general theme of the first verse. You have a lot to protect. It would make a really beautiful song, I can already tell. Okay. Second verse, first line. Again, it was the Hanged One. Clarified by the Knight of Pentacles. Because after contemplating the fault line in the chorus, you're going to be really careful about considerations. You know, this is why I completely interpreted this in the first place as imagination, like sort of like playing out the tape in a decision-making process. You know, like, I'm aware that something is about to break open at my feet. The ice is cracking on this thing. Something is about to fall apart. Something needs to be refined. Let me start to think about it. Let me imagine what it would be like if I just fell through the ice of whatever this is in your life that's beginning to crack. And so this is, I think, just representing how slow and careful your decision making is going to be. Card of Virgo, you know, mutable sign of Earth. So a slow decision, imagining possibilities. That's the first line of the second verse. Second line of the second verse, remember, was this beautiful Page of Swords, kind of wearing the same headgear as that Seven of Wands. Discovering what happens when you move closer to what you can see in the magnifying glass while looking at your own clarity, at your own transition, and that is clarified by the King of Wands. King of Wands, card of Leo, fixed sign of fire. He carries a torch. Got a salamander on his shirt, which that's interesting because a salamander is... Well, there's always a salamander with the King of Wands, but what interests me most is the torch, and that he's in the desert. So if that's clarifying this, it would suggest that this kind of brown, it's almost like this little figure kind of brings the desert with, while contemplating, because their feet don't seem to entirely be on the ground. In the ocean, it's more of like a further investigation. You know, essentially what I'm seeing is that you have a lot to protect, especially with regard to yourself, how you feel, how valuable, like, the life you've designed, the life you've built, and how much it means to you, like what you're seeing in what you've become. A lot to protect. First verse. Something is starting to crack. Imagine if it did. Imagine even deeper. Put myself there. In the full expression of what I've become, what I have to protect. I find it's a really powerful thing. Third line of the second verse was, as you recall, the Death card. The Empress. The Empress. You're on the right track. You're on, it sounds like, like what's awakening. It's almost like I can hear you say, what's awakening in me. I'm, you know, it happens, right? It happens in our lives. Like the closer we get, like the closer we get to our own dharma, our own, like being true to self, things break open. Like there are in fact like losses, but it seems to me you're almost surrendering through this crack. It's almost like a trust fall. You're taking a look, you're contemplating it, you're thinking it over, but you're only finding like more gloriousness. So then the last line of the second verse was those beautiful sea turtles, which I think typically when they're born, well, don't they like swim to the surface? Anyway, it's clarified by the magician. And to be honest, the magician came out while I was shuffling and dealing. It actually popped out. For a second, I actually took it out and put it here. I was going to leave it as a clarifier, but then as like a, almost like, I was going to leave it as just kind of like overseeing the whole reading. But then I was like, nah, put it back in. And this is why, because it belongs here. Okay, so I think you have a sense of, where your song is going. Again, the bridge gets added to the chorus, right? Singing about the fault line. The bridge gets added. I have a feeling that in this case it's about like fearlessness, almost like exalted fearlessness. That's what I would say. Exalted fearlessness. So I think we're clear so far regarding the direction of your song. The Siren Song readings, like they're explained more in full on my Vimeo intro. So if there's anything confusing about this reading type or anything like that, this spread that I've invented, please feel free to just check out my Vimeo intro, which is on my Vimeo page. The songs are going to get resolved, as I said, third verse, sometimes even fourth, and any necessary clarifiers over there on Vimeo. So if this is a song for you, if it's resonating with you, then feel free to follow me over there. And if not, thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to the next time. Okay. Bye, Aries.